Well, we welcome you today to Conversations and Coffee on this 13th day of the month of October. I'm Ellen O'Shaughnessy, coordinator for this program here at the Priscilla R. Tyson Cultural Arts Center. Mother Earth is truly with us today in her beauty and spirit in this exquisite exhibit brought together by Tom Baillieul, Char Norman, our main gallery visionaries. And I would say, Tom, you are forever surprising us and gifting us in what you come up with a team for our main gallery. And Char, you have brought to us your vision as the curator, guest curator. And I love what you say when you say that everything we have and we use comes from Mother Earth, from the food we eat, to the clothes we wear, to the houses we live in. Char is an accomplished fiber artist specializing in papermaking and fiber sculpture. She received a Master of Fine Arts from the Claremont Graduate University and a Bachelor of Art from the Scripps College. She has lectured and exhibited extensively both nationally and internationally. She has held the positions of Associate Provost and Dean of Faculty at the Columbus College of Art and Design, and has returned to the studio as a full-time professional artist. Tom Baillieul, and as I said, you never cease to amaze us with your creative ideas and guest artists. Tom is a geologist. He shares that his training and experiences in the earth sciences have shaped the way he perceives the physical world, giving him the ability to think in 4 dimensions. Nearly every work I create, Tom shares, is a narrative. Inspiration for his work comes from a number of sources: a gallery exhibition, a word or phrase, a news article, ocean waves, and more. Tom's work appears regularly in juried exhibitions across Ohio and is part of the private collections across the country. Our guest artists sharing with us today their amazing works express the call of our leaders, Tom and Char, to forge a new relationship with the earth. Our guest artists, Bruce Robinson and Catherine Bell Smith. Bruce shares that after retiring from Columbus College of Art and Design after 32 years, he's been fortunate to continue exploring a range of personal ideas. The Earth is Us provided the chance for him, and Char, he says, was his inspiration here, calling him to do this. It's a chance for him to link his working process to the serious contemporary issue and challenge of climate change. Bruce creates assemblages and plywood paintings that are figurative or abstract. His work has appeared in numerous regional and national juried shows. He's exhibited in Dresden, Germany. Bruce, we look forward to going around the corner here and seeing this wonderful work that awaits us. And as we do that, Catherine Bell Smith, we are going to be sharing your current work. You, an installation artist, huh? Your work is composed of and influenced by natural elements collected and pocketed from the land as you explore country roads, city streets, and tends at the same time to your garden, huh? Half-acre garden. Her work draws fine lines of connection between nature's example of life in balance, as you say, or not, and humankind's journey toward purpose, understanding, and integrity. Catherine holds a Master of Fine Arts degree in sculpture from Ohio State University and a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Bowling Green State University. Well, we're excited to experience this. And how many of us want to forge a new relationship with the earth? Hey! And we thank you for your leadership. Tom and Char, we want you could come up here together, or do you want to talk from where you're sitting? Tell us about how this has happened.
I think we'll talk from right here, and
Okay.
then we'll share the microphones back and
All
forth. The idea for the Earth of Us came about somewhere between 4 and 5 years ago now, pre-COVID. I, for a long time, had wanted to feature something in this gallery relating humanity's connections to the Earth. And that was kind of just the seed of an idea. I talked to Jeff Martin, the director here, Todd Camp, the assistant director, and they said, oh yeah, that could be really cool. How would we do it? And we had previously done shows with guest curators, and I immediately thought of Char and got thumbs up all around the table, and we connected with Char, invited her in for a conversation. I think she took about 12 hours to think about it and got back to us and said, yeah. And so that's how it started. We initially had an advisory committee with scientists and artists, and this whole idea of the Earth is Us was given to us by Dr. Steve Rissing, Professor Emeritus of Biology at OSU, as he was pointing out to us during one of our sessions that the connections that we have to the planet are deeper than any of us ever imagined. In recent years, we've heard about the human microbiome, that incredible ecosystem that lives inside us and on us, and there are more cells that aren't of our body on us and in us than there are cells of our bodies. Well, it turns out that plants also have a microbiome, and the health of the plant's microbiome is directly controlled by the health of the soil microbiome in which they grow. So we eat plants, we eat animals that eat plants, we take into ourselves all of the elements that come initially from the soil. If the soil is not healthy or have a wide range of nutrients, then the plants are deficient, and that relates directly to human health. So Steve said, the Earth is us, and we went, there's a title. And then the idea of forging a new relationship with Char's. And I'm going to turn it over to Char at this point.
So when Tom asked me to do this, he says I took 12 hours. Well, is this on? Okay. So Tom asked me to do this, and he comments it took me 12 hours, but in reality, as an environmental artist, and I have a tendency to overbook myself, so I thought, well, I'll just think about this. But inside I was going, oh, yes. And would have responded immediately, but I thought, well, I'll just play it cool. But the whole idea and the theory around this show is so close to my heart, because as an environmental artist, and also thinking about the environment, which I think is probably the most important issue facing us, because without the Earth, we're gone anyway, so what else matters? And that idea of forging a new relationship is something I really believe in too. It's really destroying the hierarchy that, humans aren't up here and the germs aren't down here. We're all interconnected, we're all equally important, and it takes all of us to thrive. So changing that whole idea is really important. But so many things were coming up, not new things, but things that were coming to the forefront again in our lives. For example,
the immigration question and the Black Lives Matter movement that was emerging, and just all these different things. And it occurred to me, we all bring a different perspective to this problem. So let's have artists that can bring perspectives that are a little bit different. We have the cultural significance from Nepal with Anita's work, and we have, a lot of things that you wouldn't think about. Recycling basketballs. I mean, that's crazy. This guy is a sports enthusiast, and he's doing this amazing work. And then there's, the usual things that we think about that, like plastics. But what about the fashion industry and the clothing we wear? That's something people don't realize. That is the biggest polluter there is. And we have 2 artists that are addressing that. So really bringing together artists with different perspectives was really how I wanted to approach this. And I don't know if you want to say more about that. A scientist, Amy Youngs is a scientist, and yet an amazing artist. And then we have our artists that walked Woodward Park every day for months and recorded what it feels like to be out in nature and really brought that to us. So, that's where it all came from. As Tom said, we met for so long. COVID came, and in some ways that was not helpful, but not detrimental to what we did. And it gave the artists more time. We met over Zoom. We kept that conversation going. The artists had time to develop their work and really what their concepts were and how it fit into this.
So I think that's a good background. And Ellen, do you want to take the lead again? And
Yes.
You had some questions for the 2 artists who are with us today?
Yes, and Bruce is going to take us around the bend.
Okay.
And then we'll come back because we're being asked to do it this way rather than this way because of the cameraman, huh? Okay. All right, so lead us around with your beautiful painting and plywood, and we shall follow Bruce.
You can hold on to that one.
Is that okay? Yeah, right around the corner here. Okay, and we'll talk about it when we come. Yeah.
Okay. Well, this piece is part of a body of work or a family of work that's figuratively based, and the medium is basically what I call shaped plywood. This piece relates to the theme of the exhibit, especially the part, the title, Forging a New Relationship. So in a sense, this piece is a metaphor for that conception of forging a new relationship between humanity and the biome, as Tom mentioned, and nature itself. And it's sort of a metaphorical figure in terms of it being like a hybrid between plant and human. That was the conception. And this is a very different configuration than what I usually do with the figure. Most of the figurative images that I work with this process are a little bit more naturalistic in terms of how they, the shapes and so on. But this is sort of a morphing of one type of organism or merging with another. And that's the thematic conception. On a formal basis, I just wanted to work with a standing, kind of freestanding form. and also incorporate an experimental element component that I work with in a number of other pieces. That's this center area here. It's called a thaumatrope, and you can actually spin it. I won't mess with it too much here. But it spins, and you see the two images simultaneously, which is like a prototype of cinema from back in the 19th century. The idea for some of this central imagery here within the thaumatrope piece actually came from taking walks in the park near where I live, and accumulated some of the shapes and some of the ideas from just kind of wandering around Fairwood Park. Ellen asked me to bring another piece, so I brought this standing figure from home. And this piece was actually made from a scrap from making some of these other pieces some years back. And so I wanted to see if I could make a standing figure and incorporate the thaumatrope. You can see how it works a little better here. You spin this, and you see the kind of merged imagery. And I played with that a number of times in some other pieces, and so that's what this piece is about in a formal sense. So if there are any questions?
Well, and Bruce, I'd like to point out that you do have a second piece that is there at the end of the gallery on the wall that relates to water.
Yes, yes. Do you want to take a walk over there?
Yes.
Okay, let's
All
take
right, let's go. They prefer we walk around this way, but
I probably should
We
have
can
gone
do
the
it.
other way. Okay, this particular piece actually evolved over a longer period of time than the other one. So when Char first approached me to participate, invited me to participate in this exhibit, I started out, this is the first piece that I started with, and then kind of got, things kind of went sideways because of COVID, so I abandoned it for a while and then came back to it maybe actually 3 times. So in its initial form, it looked very different than the way it is now. It had some other components to it, and part of the mixed media or assemblage process that I incorporate is what I call a migratory process, where the piece may start out with certain components, and then they get ripped apart, reconfigured, put back together, other elements incorporated until something seems to kind of click, as it were, and it comes into its final form, which is kind of where this piece landed. The title, Onus, actually can be a single word or can be broken up into 2 words, but the 2 words actually correlate with one another. So onus is like our responsibility toward whatever issue it may be. And then on us, you can break it into on us. And I think the theme of the overall exhibit is it really is kind of on us to do something about this climate crisis that we're kind of engaged in. From a formal standpoint, I wanted to incorporate some elements that correlate with the importance of water, which you can kind of see on the wall label here. And I tried to develop something that was very simple, very straightforward, a basic water filter system. And in a way, I hope it never comes to that. Yeah. I hope our infrastructure and so forth is rebuilt and reestablished so we don't have to to fall into the need to actually filter our own water. But in recent years, from the incident in Flint, Michigan, and then more recently in Jackson, Mississippi, where the water structure completely broke down and people had no access to any kind of fresh or clean water. So this is sort of a metaphor symbol for representing the danger that exists, and I hope that none of us ever have to do that. Another formal element that let me see if I can get this to work here. I don't know if the light will allow you to see this. This has another component, which is too much. You can kind of see it a little bit. There's a stencil element here that spells out the word onus, and when the light hits it just right, then you see what I call a light stencil that'll appear on the wall. The lighting is, can you kind of see that? Yeah. So my hand is kind of obscuring it, but I think you can kind of see the way that's supposed to work. And these elements up here, I actually included a little bit of text here. The 5 elements of what each of us can do to one degree or another. What do you do in the climate crisis? You can adapt to the situation, which some of us will have to do. You can try to mitigate it if you have the technology and the means to do so. You can regenerate, which I think you can see that implied in some of the other work in the gallery here. Recycle, we can all do that, and possibly renew by perhaps planting gardens or creating green spaces in our immediate environment or within our community. The rest of this stuff is just assemblage process. Like I said, just finding, tearing things apart, building up, breaking down, and this is the final result. So, any questions? Okay.
What do some of your students, after 32 years at Columbus College of Art and Design, where is their consciousness in this regard with you?
I'm sure the contemporary students, it wasn't that big of an issue when I first started teaching, and that was back in the late 70s. But as the decades have moved on, more and more students are aware of environmental issues, and it's a big factor for the younger, probably more of a bigger factor for the younger generation than it was for mine.
Do you find their expressions of that concern in their art?
In some cases, in some cases, some people have more of an awareness or a passion for it than others, and that kind of reflects the society as a whole. Some people are more intensively involved with it than others. Okay. Yes, sir.
I was just concerned too with the idea of the students, etc. If you've noticed an influx with the concept of using plastics and how to reform, reuse, readapt, things that we normally think of as throwaway and scrap, because that's such a part of our culture, of just throwing anything away instead of what my great-grandmother had, which is the fraction of what was not throw anything away. The shirt would become part of a rug or a quilt or clothing. But I would hope that's starting to show up in some of the artists.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I retired, believe it or not, 12 years ago. So the generational awareness of students shifts from decade to decade. But I think you can see in like Casey Bradley's work, who's a contemporary professor over at CCAD, and I'm sure that he infuses a lot of that thinking into his teaching. I would assume part of the content of his work. The last thing I'll leave you with, and then I'll turn it over to Catherine, is in the process of doing this, I stumbled on a quote by concerning the water issue. I just happened to stumble on a quote by the poet W.H. Auden, in which he said, "Thousands of people can live without love, but not one can live without water." And that struck a real chord with me about the importance of preserving our watersheds and our water resources, and trying to keep it as pure and as healthy as possible for all of us. Okay, thank you.
All right. And Catherine, we're on.
You're kind of
Work.
amidst
Yes, here
the
we
piece.
are. So tell us, this is amazing.
So the piece is titled Marking Time. And I think it's basically a calendar. So in its most elemental, it's a calendar marking time. The different components, like the tumbleweeds, that actually came first. So I collect, the way I work is that I go out in nature, and if I see something that's interesting or that intrigues me, I pick it up. I'm trying to foster a curiosity of the world. I grew up the same, you know, like I'm from that generation where kind of everything was given to us, although my parents did grow up in the in harsher times, and they didn't throw anything away. Collected a lot of nails, hammered them straight. That was my job. So I had that kind of a sense in my youth. Kind of lost track of that as I was going through my education, growing up, and then took a step away from art making for a while and worked on my garden and gained a new appreciation for the earth and making things grow or helping to encourage things to grow. And then also infusing that with a sense of design, because that's like my training. So I was able to kind of meld those two together while I was working on the garden and creating hardscapes and greenscapes. And then I guess from that, I just decided when I started making art again that I wasn't going to do the same sort of thing. I wasn't going to cast metal. I wasn't going to weld scrap pieces together. I needed to do something more, something that had a greater impact. So I decided to turn my eye to collecting for a purpose, and that's kind of how this all came to be. The different elements are the tumbleweeds, which I started collecting those. They're actually, I call them urban tumbleweeds. They're just weeds that grow up in our alleys, and they do the same process of disconnecting themselves from their root system as the season progresses. So in the wintertime, they break away and tumble down the alleyways, spreading their seeds like crazy. And we may appreciate them or not, but they are definitely a presence. And for me, I knew that they came around a certain time. It's just 3 years worth of collecting of them.
Beautiful.
I love the idea of what a tumbleweed does. I know that they're a nuisance, which is part of the dichotomy of my work. I like to at least get people thinking about, you know, what the value of these things is. And a lot of people love tumbleweeds because they're beautiful and they have a character and they flow through landscapes and build up in gathered areas. And others will then say, but they're a nuisance and they're growing crazy and out in the West. And so I like to bring those two elements together, like something is good, something is not good. And it depends on how you look at it. So perspective is really important. So I collected those, and then Char invited me to exhibit, and I thought that this might be a way to express what I wanted to about the tumbleweeds. Then the other elements are sycamore bark, and every bit of the sycamore bark that's here was collected this past summer. Sycamore trees shed their bark in July. The
bark is?
So the bark is on all of the bases here. And you'll notice that they're all sort of different colors, and they go from kind of a white to a gray to a russet brown to greens. And I'm fascinated with sycamore bark because for the different textures, for the different colors, but also for the fact that we can actually see change and growth as a product that's discarded. So most trees will just expand, but the sycamore bark will exfoliate and drop its outer layers as it's growing. So that's an element that you can actually see and witness the growth of something. So I guess that's another aspect of creating a new bond with the earth. Then,
How old do sycamore trees?
pardon me?
How long do they live?
Well, it depends on where they grow, but if they're growing near a water source, they'll grow a long, long time, and they get very, very large. When you look out in the wintertime over a landscape, if you see a big white skeletal tree, that's a sycamore, and then you can usually count on the fact that it's close to a water source. So if you were out foraging and you needed water, look for the white trees in the winter and you'll know that there's a river there.
Oh, wonderful.
They're
Have
really
any thoughts,
beautiful and
comments?
amazing.
Well, I wanted to have Catherine talk to us a little bit about the medallions also.
Right. So this was all the natural aspect, which is everything that I do. My work always involves natural materials. A couple of years ago, Char and I had a show together, and we had to write descriptions of what we might want to do for the show. And for mine, it was just change one thing about the way I live or the things that I do in order to maybe create some kind of a change, a more universal change. So at that point, I decided that I would start to incorporate plastic. These are single-use plastic bags, and I thought I could make something that's beautiful, in quotes, but that is like an artifact symbolizing our society today. So how we exist in the world, it's nature, but it's also the things that we manufacture. And trying to find a solution to the climate change. I mean, it's overwhelming. What are we supposed to do? As individuals, we don't have the resources, but as an artist, maybe I can bring to light an issue, one problem. And I always like to make things pretty, so that's part of the design. But so then I decided to do these medallions, and wanting to kind of repurpose the plastic bags and show that there's something beautiful about that. I think plastic bags are going to be with us for a long, long time. I think there are arguments on both sides of this issue. How much energy does it cost to make them? How much energy does it cost to recycle? What do we do when we recycle them? All of those issues. It's fascinating. It's not my lane. I don't know what to do about all of that except to gather up all the plastic bags that I see and even recycle plastic bags from other people. and then make these, and then
How long does it take you to make
one.
Good question.
one
Did you hear
takes-
that? How long does it take you to make just one of these?
It takes about an hour to make one, and I've made about 1,000. So I was working on them through the whole process. When we first started talking about this show, I had already started making the medallions. So it's about a year, a little over a year's worth of creating these. That's 5 a day, basically. Works out to about 5 a day. So that's 5 hours. And it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time. But
how do you go about that?
Pardon me?
How do you go about creating that?
It's coiling.
Coiling.
Yes, yeah. So you take the plastic bags and you cut them into strips. And the center is the strips of plastic bags, and then they're wrapped with plastic bags as well. So the whole thing is entirely plastic. Then there's a little crystal that's attached to it. It's kind of like, for me, it's a little bit of a teardrop. And yeah, that's the process.
But you're selling them for what?
I'm not selling them. I'm actually, they're what I call takeaways. So people can come in and take them for nothing. It's just, I want people to be aware of this. I want them to see that there's an issue. I want them to understand that there's something that we can do about this. This is my way of doing that, repurposing and creating art out of it.
But also there's the hope that goes along with that, that if you do take one, you will make a donation to the Ohio Environmental Council.
Yes. Yeah, that's on the description there
Yeah.
of the piece. I just thought, I suggested $3 donation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just remember, the holidays are coming up, and these make great decorations on the tree.
I actually wore one. I made jewelry out of them. There's a lot of different things that you can use them for. But yes, certainly ornaments on a Christmas tree would be fabulous.
And I bought 2 of them last weekend, and I brought my family here to see the show. And I will be making greeting cards with these that I have.
Oh, nice. That's a great idea.
Let's say that for the record, because they're recording you.
Who's recording? Oh, and I wanted to say that because of what I'm learning here with the clothing, and I just turned 90 this last weekend, and I was going
Congratulations.
to buy myself a new dress for that occasion, and I decided, no, I don't need a new dress. I have plenty in my closet now. I will find out something pretty and wear it, and not buy anything new.
Well, I kind of want to applaud. That's wonderful. Again, just one small change that we can do in our lifestyle that's fabulous, and I'm really happy that you were inspired.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's say.
Oh,
I just wanted to ask why the graduation of sizes plus the tumbleweeds go from really small and you can see through to the thicker ones and the taller pillars and everything. So why did that happen?
so I think that's about intensity, I will admit to a practical solution to an issue with what kind of pedestals does the Cultural Arts Center have? But also because I did not want to have to buy material, and create something when there was already a solution here. So this is a compromise maybe that I made for the sake of the environment, because these pedestals were already here. So I chose to use them. They're different heights. They're all the same width, but they're different heights. But then I thought this works with the theme, because if we start here in December, when things are kind of wizened and thinner, the air is thinner, the temperature is colder, we draw down a little bit. So it goes from the cold months to the warm months when we're flush and and big and bombastic, and then back down to the quieter time as the season ends. So that's.
Sit down, Catherine Bell Smith. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
Bruce Robinson. Let's continue our conversation, and a round of applause for those presentations. Great.
Next June, Columbus, for the first time, will have a dance troupe participating in an international dance event on June 10th. Think of it as a simulcast where dancers, over 100 dance companies around the world will be choreographing and performing a dance related to access to clean water. One of the biggest issues now facing the world is water supplies for people. And we will also have, in June of next year, an exhibition here in the main gallery called Water is Life. So it's kind of a continuation of The Earth is Us. So mark your calendars now.
And we'll get those dates. To mark our calendars, where do we go on the website and get those dates for everything? How do we do this?
You can come over to the table here, and there's a poster, and there's a poster above the table, the blue poster.
Okay.
Just, you can take down the dates there.
Great.
It eventually will get onto the website when we start spotlighting the 2023 exhibitions.
Well, some thoughts. I can see them. Luther, I can see it on your face. What are some of your thoughts there?
That's a good question. Excuse me. It's kind of late in the meeting to ask this, but I wanted to know. Those tumbleweeds, they're indigenous only to the desert, right?
No. Actually, when I was doing my research, which is part of what, when I get all excited about something new that I discover, I found these right outside my studio, downtown Columbus. Yeah. Yes. So they're native to Columbus, and the tumbleweeds that are out west are an entirely different species. But what creates a tumbleweed is that process, natural process, where as the season progresses, they break away from their root structure. It's the way to disperse their seeds. Seeds are dispersed by animals, by wind, and in this case, wind and the actual structure. As it's tumbling and creating that round shape, it is actually dropping all of its seeds. So the seeds will find little pockets of cracks in the asphalt or along the sidewalk, and then the next season they'll grow up in the spring and keep the process going. So these are over 3 years that I collected them, so I can attest to the fact that it is a process. It does continue, yeah. So if you just look out for them, you'll see them.
And Luther draws in the most meticulous detail that I can only imagine what it would be like. Are you going to draw, Luther, the tumbleweed?
I don't think I have time right now. But I can assure you that
you will, yes.
Jim?
My question was, so when you go to collect it, is that one form, or is that like a multiple amount and you fasten them into one form?
For the most part, that's one.
That is one form?
Yes. Wow. There are some that I think that in my collecting process, they were like the bases kind of broke apart as they were tumbling, but they still stuck together. And it's the tumbling process that creates them, that makes them rounded like that. So yeah. they might have, like started off as one, broke apart, but they clung together.
I just want to know, Char, do you have any?
I do. I just want to reiterate how important the environment is. And, we talked about how it's part of us, we're the earth, but it's so important. But it is so tied up with social justice. And I have to say that again. And a really good example of that is Columbus has put together an urban forestry plan, which is really fantastic. And part of that was a study of the canopy cover in Columbus and how uneven it is, and that falls along the whole idea of social justice. So that's a good example. So I have 2 requests. Please go plant a tree, and please vote.
Yes, I mean, I can attest, because I've gone out and checked, that there are very strong differences between candidates for office in this election cycle. You have candidates who are climate change deniers, and they don't need to be representing us because this issue, well, it's our future, it's our children's future, it's probably the most important issue facing humanity at this point. I'd invite people, when you leave, stop by the table over here, because we have information sheets on things you can do, how to get involved, where to find resources. And also on our webpage, under the Earth is Us exhibition, we have a study guide to go along with this exhibition. It was written primarily for middle to high school age students, but I think anybody can enjoy it. If you have children and grandchildren, download a version of it and let them see it. Send it to their teachers. There's a whole bunch of activities there to get people more aware of the world around them, as well as the issues that are facing us. We talk about the issues of clothing and fashion. There's several exercises in there. Actually, Priscilla Roggenkamp, the artist who has those wonderful gowns on the wall, gave me like 3 or 4 activities to go into the study guide, because she is a teacher. So check that out.
I think also I want to point out that you need to walk through the courtyard and check that out. 2 wonderful pieces there. Ron Shelton, who works with plastics and does numerous workshops with kids to teach them about plastics. And also Celeste Malvar-Stewart, who is a fashion designer, does couture fashion, but with sustainable fibers. So all of her fibers come from local farmers, alpaca and wool. And the gown that's out there is embedded with seeds, so it should be growing soon. But she talks all about that, so that's important. And is it okay if I just point out one other piece? Anita
wonderful.
Mahajan, who did this sculpture, the installation with the plastic bags and bed sheets, I think it's really interesting because she grew up in a small village in Nepal.
And you're referring to this piece?
Yes.
The one right there.
The 2
Right.
arches, the tan
Yes.
and white and black
Which
and
you
gray.
are invited to walk through and touch and what have you. But the women in her village recycled rice straw to make mats. And when Anita came to this country and realized the consumer waste that was going on, she uses the same technique from her village to create these sculptures, only now using post-consumer waste instead of rice straw. So she's taking an indigenous knowledge and applying it to our environmental issues. And I think that's another important point. Jim, you said it, that, we need to hark back to what our grandmothers did. We didn't throw things away. We reused them.
We can applaud the fact now, as late as it is, that the major grocery chains serving Central Ohio are making a commitment to do away with single-use plastic. So make sure you've got your own shopping bags. Take them with you.
Yes.
And
be
shop at
patient.
those stores that are being environmentally conscious.
That's right.
I have a comment about the plastic bags. You have all this clothing that you're throwing away. Take a T-shirt, sew the arms together, cut a piece off, make a handle, and you have a bag to put your groceries in. It is not a big deal. You can do it with pants or shirts
Great
or
idea.
anything.
Great idea.
And you can
That's
do it with
wonderful.
hand stitching. You don't need a sewing machine.
And especially because the paper bags will break from the handles. And you say, now this isn't working, and therefore you could be tempted to go back to the plastic, but not with Deb's idea. Very good and very creative, huh?
Jean?
I make quilts. I make quilts for the homeless, and this year I've made 150. And
Wow.
I buy used clothing, sheets from the used clothing store and cut them up into 10.5-inch squares. But then there's always extra left over, and I don't want to put it in the garbage. And so I found a woman who's making dog blankets and uses all the scraps I give her to stuff the bags.
Oh, I love it. That's great. Good for you. Yay.
Well, Ellen, I guess back to you
Well,
for wrapping up.
To say thank you. And thank you for the way you came to interpret how the earth is us. We have to, because you've called us to it, forge a new relationship. It isn't going to just happen. We're going to creatively take it on, and you truly are leaders. Thank you, Bruce, Tom, Catherine, Char.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful.